heaven, baby. Me and you call heaven, baby. Me and you call heaven, yeah. Me and you call heaven, yeah. Heaven, yeah. Heaven, yeah. Heaven, yeah. Heaven, yeah. Heaven, yeah.
Hi, I'm Andrea, and I'm going to be interviewing Ephraim here.
Yeah.
Hi, Ephraim. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Why don't we start off by just kind of giving us a little background about Ghana and how you came over to the United States.
Okay. Well, Ghana is a country of about 25 million. And if you look at the size of Ghana, it's just like Oregon. Okay. And when I finished my undergraduate degree, I was asked to be a teaching assistant, and while I was a teaching assistant, my professor came to my apartment one day and said, "Oh, I have a form for you to fill out to go to school and do your master's program." So it so happened that it was a form for Ohio University, and I filled it out, not knowing if I would get an admission or scholarship. Unfortunately, I did get it, so that is how I ended up in the United States.
So you had to be pretty excited that you were coming to a new country.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure,
it was exciting. It was exciting. You know, the funny story was that the day I got my letter of admission and the scholarship, I was walking around and holding the letter, and then some of my people in the students in my hall looked at me, and somebody said, "Oh, he just got a letter from a girl," you know, something like that. They were just, I said, "Oh yeah, you have no idea what letter."
Yeah.
So it was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting to get that letter.
So when you came over here, though, you essentially knew no one, correct?
Yeah, so when I came over, so I have an interesting story about that. One of the things that do happen is that there are so many people who want to come to the United States to study. Or to visit or to come and work. So in many developing countries, what you see is that there are so many people in line at the embassies trying to get visas to come to the United States. Fortunately for me, I did not have to stand in line. I've always told myself that I wasn't going to stand in line to get a visa, and I did not.
Wow.
That's a long story, but that happened. The other thing was that, of course, I was coming into a new place. It's not like I had people who were there and saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to welcome you at the airport and everything." So here was I was on a plane, got to Columbus Airport, and then from Columbus, Ohio to Athens, it's about an hour and a half. And I came a little bit late, so all the shuttles that were going from the university to the airport were done. I mean, they've stopped running because many of the international students have already come in. So I got to this airport, and I did not know how to get to Athens, Ohio, right? I said, "Okay, what do I do?" He said, "Oh, you need a taxi." I said, "Oh, how much does a taxi cost?" He said, "Oh, it's about $150. I was like, "What? That's too expensive." Anyway, so I went to the information center, and I said, "Well, I'm going to Athens. Can you make an announcement that there's somebody going to Athens, and if there's another person going, we can share the ride and pay for it?" So while I was there, when they made the announcement, a man approached me and said, "Oh, I'm waiting for my wife to come and pick me up from Athens. If she doesn't come, I'm going to join you on a taxi to Athens. If she comes, then you get a ride." Unfortunately, she came. So that was how I got my ride to the university. And
so you had quite a journey to get your way around, and obviously you didn't feel discriminated against at all right away, would you say? Or
No, I did not. I mean, people were very helpful at the airport, and this stranger that I did not know, who later on I got to know with, the wife was a professor she's still a professor at Ohio University, and we became close friends. And it's like, oh yeah, they were ready to help, so that was really good.
That's very interesting. So kind of going on to like citizenship in your life, can you kind of explain the journey you took to become a citizen here in the United States?
Yeah, it is. My citizenship came as a result of marriage, and again, there are different ways by which you can get citizenship. So I married my sweetheart in college,
Yeah.
put it that way. We were both in the grad school when we met, and then got married. And then after that, I decided, okay, it was time for me to apply for green card, permanent residency. And first, you go through the temporary residency, and then you have the permanent residency. And what happened was that I had a little, because my wife was then living in Atlanta, and I was living in Ohio, still in grad school, and we got messed up in the way where we were supposed to file, because there are different service centers. But it delayed a little bit before. But once we started the process, and it was pretty smooth. And I got my green card, my permanent residency, and decided that I wasn't going to do citizenship. I waited for 4 or 5 years, and
Oh, really?
finally I said, oh, maybe I should just do the citizenship.
So you kind of felt like this was home, even though you didn't need to be a citizen.
Yeah,
right?
I thought,
Okay.
and there are so many privileges and rights that do come with being a permanent resident. Of course, I couldn't vote and do
Right.
other things. And I felt, well, I don't need to go all the way to citizenship. But after a while, I realized that, well, the economy has changed, things have changed, I need to...
It was more important to
It
become a
was-
citizen at that point in your life.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you're a dual citizen. So how can you contrast both? I mean.
Yeah, it is an
differences.
interesting thing. That's a good question. So, I mean, for a long time I gave my citizenship, and then I said, oh, well, I'm an American citizen now. Now the Ghanaian citizen can lie somewhere for a while. And then last year I decided that I was going to apply for the dual citizenship.
Okay.
And, before then, of course, I've been traveling using my American passports. And so it was always interesting going to Ghana, and then, they said, all those with Ghanaian passports, this line, all those with American passport, this line, and then you see me in the the foreign line.
Yeah.
And I mean, which is fine. It is, I like it as an expansion that you have the opportunity to be both and to enjoy privileges from both countries. And it's just interesting the way some people look at you sometimes, like, oh, look at your name, and you're not a Ghanaian citizen. It was interesting. Last year I went to Ghana, and I wanted to open an account, a bank account. So I went to this bank, and I said, instead of even speaking to them in one of my native language, and I was like, oh, okay, do you have any ID? And I said, I don't have any Ghanaian ID on me, right? And they said, well, you cannot open an account, right? But these are people that I was, my name shows I'm from, the community and everything, but I couldn't open an account because I didn't have a Ghanaian ID.
So that was a big change.
That was
for
a
you,
big
for
change.
sure.
But it was like, okay, you need to go and do this dual citizen thing, ship thing. And I've also thought about, some properties that it got me thinking, oh, so you have some properties at home. What about if somebody says, well, you're not a citizen of Ghana, you cannot, and not that foreign citizens cannot own property, but, it's just kind of interesting
the principle,
to look at it.
So what would you say the biggest difference between being a good Ghana citizen versus American citizen?
You mean the ideal
Like the
citizen?
ideal, what would you define that as in America?
Oh, that is a good question. Well, I mean, every citizenship comes with responsibilities, right? So as a citizen, you have the right to participate, and you see it across countries, in terms of you want to protect your country and all that. I think one of the differences that you sometimes see is what opportunities have your country provided for you, right? And you see the fact that there are quite a number of people who feel like, oh, I need to go to another country because, there are greener pastures, whether how,
Sure.
the cliche, shows that sometimes some countries do not necessarily create the opportunities for their people to be the best,
Yeah.
And you can sense it in some Ghanaians. They feel like, oh, yeah, we don't feel like we are getting enough support or enough opportunities to be who we want to be, right? And therefore we need to go outside the country. So not only those people don't necessarily, I don't see myself looking at it as being unpatriotic or anything like that. It's like, how can I be my best and where can I go to be my best?
Sure.
Right? So you have those differences.
So it's not really where you are, it's just who you are, and then you bring that with you.
Exactly, and the opportunities that wherever you are provides for you.
Okay.
So the interesting story about this too will be, I know you have to move on,
No, it's okay.
is when Ghana plays against United States, and then I'm sitting there watching this soccer game, like, all right, who do I support in this game, right?
Yeah.
And of course, my allegiance goes more towards Ghana. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good story.
It is interesting.
It's very interesting. So kind of going back to like your immigration, I'm sure you came in contact with a lot of other people that were trying to become citizens. So how do you feel Americans prepare these immigrants to become citizens? Do you feel like it's a fair process?
That is, we're having a lot of debates about that. And that is, there are so many people, I know so many people who are stuck in line, who have applied for a long time to either move their process forward and they feel like they are stuck, right? And it's because of the structure of our immigration system, right? You take countries like Australia or you take countries like Canada and other places where they deal with point system, right? So if you have a college degree, you get this number of points. If you are in this profession, you get this number of points. If you have a master's degree, you get this number of points. So their immigration process is structured in such a way that depending on who you are, you have a certain level of advantage. So I come in with this many points. It's easier for me to move through the process. What we have done here is that you don't have this point system, and the system is not really flexible enough for some people to go through it. So you see people stuck, right? And that can be really frustrating for a lot of people. I know a few people who are, again, stuck in the system and they feel like,
Which is just a weird concept because if you think about it, this country was just founded on people from everywhere coming in. Now we're full.
Exactly, right? So, but again, if you look at history again, you see how we've used all kinds of laws and to prevent particular groups of people from coming into this country. So it is, there are precedents to that, and usually what happens is when the country goes through economic downturns, that is where it rises, right? And people feel like, oh yeah, there are others who are coming to get my job and other things. And it's not only in the United States, you see it in a lot of other places too.
So I can only imagine that the immigration system in Ghana is nothing like it is here. I mean, is it fairly easy to become a citizen in Ghana?
Well, here is a case. It's not because it's difficult. It's just so bureaucratic. Our bureaucratic processes are just not smooth enough, and I think that is the only problem that we have in Ghana. But again, you don't have a huge number of people saying, I want to be a Ghanaian citizen, right? We do. I mean, there are those who come from other parts of Africa who want to be Ghanaian citizens, just because, again, Ghana is one of the most peaceful places and all that. But you don't have a lot of people saying, hey, get this and that.
Yeah. So, being that you are now an American citizen and living here for several years, would you say that your identity has shifted a little bit since you have came here?
Yeah, it is. It is an. Identity is again fluid in different ways. I see a lot of changes in me. I go to Ghana and I walk around or talk to people and automatically they say, "Oh, this guy doesn't live here," right? You get a sense that this guy is from somewhere else or he's from,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes feel like I've not changed much, but others see that I've changed,
Sure.
right? And that is how you negotiate it. So when I'm in Ghana, I'm not fully Ghanaian because of the way I talk and because of my ideas about the way things should go. And when I'm here, I'm not fully American because I have the Ghanaian identity with me, right? And those who live in, of course, you look at third cultures, you look at people who are what we call liminal. You are in a liminal position, so you are neither here nor there. And how do you negotiate that, right?
Right.
It becomes an interesting concept. With me, what I try to do is to reframe it. And I reframe it by saying this is an expansion rather than a substitution. Okay. If you take it as, if it is food, okay, as an example, you have a whole range of food that I can eat right now because I have expanded it. I'm not substituting one for the other, right? And I think if you look at identity in that way, that helps you to negotiate no matter where you are. That is, this is an expansion rather than taking this away from me or taking that away.
So culture shock for you is like easier to deal with because you don't view it as like, oh, I'm not at home. You adapt.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I get to Ghana and I say here we drive a lot. I get to Ghana and I say, oh yeah, I'm going to walk a lot in Ghana, right?
A lot of exercise.
I get this is my time to get my exercise in, right? So it's not a culture a shock thing that I'm going to be walking more or going to certain communities or talking to people or eating certain kinds of food. Is part of that process, and people deal with it differently. There are those who have been in other countries for a long time, and when they go back, they just have a hard time because they didn't see it as expansion. They saw it as I'm done with my background. I'm going to move on.
A lot of Americans, I feel, probably have a really hard time going to other countries because we're such a comfort zone type people. Especially Midwesterners, I'm sure. Have you noticed that at all?
Well, I took students to Ghana, so I have my my experiences with some of them. No matter how much you learn about another culture, you still go through a certain level of culture shock. But again, how do you negotiate it? How do you handle it? And that is it takes a lot of skills and a lot of understanding of the other culture to be able to do that. But it can be frustrating. Like, one example that I always use is the concept about time.
Oh yeah.
Right. So when we were going, I told my students that we are from a polychromic culture. It's going to be things are going to delay. How do you handle delays and and they thought I was, pushing it a little bit, and until we got there, right? And then all of a sudden, it's true, right? People have different ideas about time and how to interact with people and, keep people waiting. And so they began to adjust.
Well, and that plays a large role in just like how everyday life is operated, being on polychromic time.
It
sure.
does.
And,
it does.
And Americans are not used to that.
Exactly,
for sure.
Exactly, right? So that is how it plays out. And that is where the bureaucratic, when I was talking about citizenship, because I submitted my application for the dual citizenship and they took my application to Ghana. for that process, and it took them almost a year to get back to me, right?
Wow.
So
you would have been panicking if you were like if you were born in America.
yeah,
We'd be
what
like
is
freaking
going on
out.
here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But again,
You were used to it.
I knew what was going on there.
Right.
It just annoyed me that
Yeah. It started.
it's still
rubbing off on
yeah,
you.
it's like, come on, let's go.
Okay, so my final question to you is, ultimately, what does being an American mean to you? And
That's
it's
a
hard.
good-
It's hard
it
to
is
find
a- it
a
is a- it
definition
is
on
a-
that.
Well, I mean, I would say being an American means that I have an opportunity to be part of the development and the progress of this country. And you don't see yourself as an alien, or you don't see yourself as an outsider.
Mhm.
So you have the right to participate fully in what is going on. And I think it's a big responsibility to have. Of course, it also comes with privileges, right?
Right.
So I can take my passport and go to Europe without necessarily getting
Yeah.
a visa, or go to other places. And if I'm in somewhere in another country and something happens, I know that as an American citizen, I'm
Yeah.
going to get certain rights and all. So I think with me, it has more to do with how do I participate actively in the community, and how do I feel like I'm fully part of the community, and nobody can say, hey, go
Yeah.
home,
Right.
It's not, you cannot deport me, right?
Right.
it's
Yeah.
one of those privileges. So I see it as a means to be a good community member, and to participate in the political process and education process, of course, as a way to move the country forward. So
Great.
it's a great opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mommy,
Thank you. You're welcome.
oh mommy.